What's up, everyone, and welcome to Generation Sports. So we're starting a new podcast. This is episode 1. We call it Generation Sports because all 4 of us are from different generations, and we all have our unique views on the sports industry and different topics. So we'll introduce ourselves, starting with my father and the oldest of the group.
Hi, everybody. My name is Hiram. I'm a baby boomer born in the 60s. And I know my sports.
All right.
I don't know about that one.
And now we'll go to the other end of the spectrum with my younger brother.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim. I was born in the 2000s. I'm the youngster of the group, but I try to keep up to date with the new stuff going on in all the leagues.
And my name is Matt. I'm a 90s baby, and I work in the industry, so I'll try to provide some of that insight as well. And this is my cousin, JR.
Hey, how's it going, guys? I'm JR. I'm born in the 80s, and I have a little perspective on both ends.
All right. And then to kick things off, we're going to start talking about all 3 major sports. We'll have different segments, and it'll develop over time as well. So starting things off, we're going to start this segment called Buckets, which is everything basketball. All right, Tim, kick us off.
All right, well, first things up, guys, the NBA draft. The draft was very eventful. There was a lot of questions and speculation going into the draft because there wasn't really a consensus number 1 pick like there has been in prior drafts. But it wasn't as crazy as I think a lot of people expected it to be. Not a lot of trades at the top, which people were expecting, and a lot of interesting calls in the lottery and throughout. So if you guys want to elaborate on that.
Well, I think the top 3 picks went pretty much how people saw it if those teams stood with those slots.
Yeah, I mean, until like the day of with the whole I don't like basketball.
Yeah.
From your number 1 pick, Anthony Edwards.
And also the Clay injury.
Yeah.
The
Clay injury.
Yeah.
People weren't sure if they were going to take LaMelo then instead.
Very true, yeah.
And then Chicago shocked everybody with their pick. There's a guy that didn't start for his college for Florida State.
Didn't start.
It's like Marvin Williams all over again.
Right, like Marvin Williams all over.
Yeah.
I mean, there was rumors that he was climbing up on a lot of people's draft board, but all the way to number 4.
Well, Detroit really wanted him,
right.
And I think that's why the Bulls had to snatch him up at number 4. Detroit was trying to trade up to number 3 to pick him.
But didn't Detroit draft Milicic a couple of years back? And how did that turn out?
A couple of years.
That's that 03. But Jay, tell us your thoughts of the Bulls pick because you got a little heated in the group chat.
Yeah, I was not a fan initially. He's growing on me a little with some of the videos of him working out and some of these scouting reports and stuff. But yeah, I at the time I thought they could trade back and still end up with a similar talent and more.
Yeah,
because similar talent and then obviously more assets.
Whatever assets you got with them.
Yeah, I agree. This draft was very I feel like it was a very balanced draft. Like there wasn't the highs weren't too high and the lows weren't too lows. I feel like throughout, especially in the first round, like the mid to late first round was very balanced. So I definitely think the Bulls could have traded back, but as JR had mentioned, Patrick Williams was jumping up on a lot of draft boards, including Detroit at pick 7. So I'm not too opposed to the selection, but only time will tell to see how he really fits in Chicago.
Yeah, and I also think did Denver somehow do it again?
Yeah,
I agree.
Did Denver? I don't understand how they keep getting like these really hyped high school guys that either get injured or don't have as amazing of a freshman year as everyone thinks, or doesn't play college basketball at all and goes overseas.
That's
and
true.
People forget about, and now they get RJ Hampton
falling into their lap.
Yeah, just somehow does he develop in, with Bol and Porter Jr. Like, did they somehow do it again?
I think
only
so.
time will tell, but it's crazy how they keep doing this. They really, but it's high risk, high reward type of deal.
But see, Denver is a type of team that, they could afford to draft guys and keep them, tucked away or put them on a bench, and not worry about them right away because their team is loaded. They have a good, strong starting five and a good bench. So
but they lost Grant, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Went to Detroit.
Millsap. They lost Millsap also.
Oh, did they?
I think so.
No. I think Millsap signed. Yeah, they re-signed. Yeah. I think on a 1-year contract. But losing Grant was a big hit to them. Yeah.
He's versatile.
I agree. I feel like overall Denver has a very deep roster. But the interesting thing with Denver is that they have a lot of valuable young pieces, and I feel like they all will develop eventually. And Denver is not really a big market. So the main ways they'll get a championship contending team might have to be getting rid of some of those young guys for some superstar level talent.
Well, they do have the depth to move multiple pieces to add a superstar, a go-to guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like Millsap is still there.
Okay.
So, but losing Grant probably moves Porter Jr. into the starting lineup.
Which could be a good thing.
Yeah.
But will he play enough defense? That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Will anyone on that team really play enough defense?
Yeah. True.
Because Millsap is getting up there in age, and he's their leader defensively.
So with that said, what are some of these other roster moves?
Well, we have to talk about OKC.
Yeah. OKC has had a lot of turnover. In just a span of days, it seems like their whole team was completely remade.
For those that are watching, we just put a graphic up of what their roster was and how none of them, except for Shai, is still there.
Yeah.
So you got Steven Adams now with the Pelicans. Go ahead, Tim. Reel this off. And all the deals.
Steven Adams to the Pelicans. Terrence Ferguson to Philly. Along with Danny Green, who was a very short-lived Thunder. Dennis Schroeder to LA, playing with the Lakers. The biggest move for the Thunder this offseason with Chris Paul going to Phoenix and Danilo Gallinari signing with Atlanta. And I feel like the biggest thing is that in pretty much all these deals, the Thunder got draft picks. And if you know anything about what's been going on this offseason, you know the Thunder are loaded with some draft picks. And the next couple of years seem like really star-studded drafts. So this could go in their favor. And with this many draft picks, it's a very similar situation to the Nuggets, where they have a lot of assets to make big trades in the future.
Yeah.
Along with their young talent.
But this also reminds me a lot of what the Celtics did. And when they made their trades and loaded up a lot of draft picks, and now look at the young talent they have on the Celtics. And another team that I wanted to bring up was New Orleans.
They have a bunch
because they
draft
had
picks.
a lot of changes too, where the longest tenured player on their team is Zion.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Insane to even think about that.
They did add a lot of draft picks, especially with the Drew Holiday trade.
Yeah.
They got a lot of value out of Drew Holiday, who is an expiring contract that may not even be a buck past this upcoming season.
But if you're the Bucks, you kind of have to do what you can to keep that MVP guy around.
That's true.
I think that Bogdanovich trade falling through was huge
Yeah.
for Milwaukee, and that could be a deciding factor in the Giannis decision. But we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, I think all the moves, it just shows the impact of the shortened offseason.
Yeah.
Because basketball starts in a month.
It was a mad dash.
Yeah,
Everyone was just trying to get what they could.
And my thing is, with all these moves, how are some of these teams going to gel and play together? They don't have much time to practice, especially with different protocols and, I don't know what each team individually is doing with screening and practice time and all this stuff in the 2020 going into 2021 world of pandemic. But
because not being in a bubble is going to be very different.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting how some of these teams gel that have major roster turnovers.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest things this year is going to be depth, because not being in a bubble, you're going to go into situations where if you do get some players testing positive, then you're going to have to rely on your bench. And this is where player development is going to become very big, very big. And you got to have the guys, the right coaches to develop these players, because it's going to come to a point where some players are going to get their first playing time as starters because of, coronavirus.
And I feel like that same sentiment could be said about college basketball, because there's no bubble for college basketball either.
No.
And
even their so-called bubbles are not 100% bubbles.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out, because college basketball is a lot more restricted than the NBA is in terms of like roster movement and stuff. You only have so many players. So it really has to be that next guy up mentality. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out and how long the season will last. And
while we're on the subject, are we going to have a full season, a full college basketball season?
It's so crazy to me, because you see certain teams where they shut down the facility, practice, everything. Right. And then Gonzaga had someone test positive, and they played.
Yeah, you see.
They're the number one team in the country. Yeah. That person sat out. They did their version of contact tracing. The conference, like every team and conference has different set of rules. It's kind of crazy.
So it basically is reflecting the country itself, because each state has different
exactly.
rules.
Yeah. Well, it's just
the
like
state, the conference, like all of that plays a role in college basketball.
It's just like the Maui Classic this year is not in Maui. So this is where it's gotten to that point where, some places don't want you there. I mean, look what happened with in other sports with, you can play no games in Canada, So this is where it gets to the point where you just want to make sure that, you stay healthy, and you gotta follow that protocol.
Aren't they going to be the Florida Raptors?
Yeah, they're playing in Tampa.
The Florida Raptors. So and then even if you somehow, some way get enough regular season games, how do you do a big tournament? The NBA was able to do the bubble because it was how many teams in the bubble?
I think it was like 16 or 18
teams.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, how are you going to do that with 64 teams? It's actually 68 the last few years, because they had the play-in game in that first round.
That's true.
But even if they eliminate that, 64 teams.
64 teams. You first of all, you have to have the facilities to house them.
Yeah.
Which is tough to find in and of itself. And then just
hotels
to keep everything locked up in that bubble.
Gyms.
It was tough enough with adult athletes. Now you're talking about college kids.
Yeah.
There's too much temptation out there.
A lot of variables, unless they try to adapt a little bit of what the NBA did with what MLB did, where baseball had different cities where there were bubbles,
separate
and then
bubbles.
As they advanced, the bubble became more centralized. I don't know if that's an option. I have no idea.
That would be an interesting alternative.
But if it is an option, then it would have to be, the ideal would be big cities. Big cities with a lot of hotels that they can house, all the players and the staff and everything else. And it has to be like, it's got to be more than one city. It's got to be, several cities. 68 teams.
The problem with big cities is you now have a bigger population, which is a better chance of
someone
contact
getting into that bubble. The staff of the hotel is traveling on public transportation, and that's a whole lot of contact, and it's a lot of question marks. And obviously the NCAA is based out of Indiana, and they have always had Indiana as a backup. Like, if anything happened to any facility during March Madness, the default was to go to Indiana. If that facility was under construction, or, something happened in that city that they couldn't play, they would go to Indiana. But can Indiana house how many teams?
Well, it could be something that the NCAA needs to invest in moving forward, at least for the next year or two, until we get things normalized or, as close to it as we can get.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting how certain teams play more games than others and how rankings work out. It's going to be wild, I think, this year. But I'm just glad we got some basketball, some college basketball to a certain degree. But it will be a challenge, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So,
all right. So we're going to be moving on now to our football segment, which is
the Broncos.
Well, take
What's
it to the
going
house.
on? Yeah, take it to the house. The Denver Broncos. And again, one of the biggest things right now is a lot of these people are not following the COVID rules and regulations. And it's happening a lot in football. You have the situation in Baltimore and now in Denver. Denver has no quarterbacks. No quarterbacks for today's game. I mean, I'm available if they really need somebody.
So we're recording this on Sunday. So if you're listening in the future, but they have no quarterbacks for today's game, which is crazy. Rumors and reports are saying that they actually tried to get one of their coaches available to become their quarterback for today's game. It was like an offensive.
I think they should have just asked Elway to do it. I think you pad up one more game.
So apparently they tried to get one of their coaches to be eligible, and the NFL was like, "Nah, we're good." So who's going to be their quarterback?
I don't know. Are they going with a running back?
I heard rumors that it's going to be a practice squad wide receiver.
yeah, that's what I was hearing too. But
And he was a walk-on quarterback, I believe.
Yeah, I believe he played quarterback at Wake Forest. He was I think he threw maybe 7 or 8 career touchdowns.
But he has more experience than anyone else.
I mean, it is the Broncos we're talking about here. So
if they had all their quarterbacks available, they probably weren't going to win anyway.
no hate to those Broncos fans out there.
Sorry about that, Denver.
Yeah. Maybe Tim Tebow. I mean,
that was trending on Twitter that the Mets should work out a trade to try to get Tebow to the Broncos and then have the Broncos pay off the Rockies and the Rockies trade Arenado to the Mets.
Well, it's not like Tebow's killing it in baseball, so he should make that jump back maybe.
It'll be definitely interesting, but the Broncos are one thing.
I mean, Broncos aside, the playoff picture in the NFL is going to be very interesting. Obviously, the Broncos don't have anything to do with that.
No,
but
I
mean, maybe if they were in the NFC East, they would have a shot.
Yeah, that division is...
division is only getting wins basically because someone has to win.
If you play each other.
Games.
I mean, if you play each other...
Sometimes.
There was a tie, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
But there is, a lot of facilities are shutting down. I know the Rams this week shut down because a member, they didn't say whether it was a player or not, but a member of the staff was tested positive for corona. So it's happening all over the league. Not being in a bubble is really having an effect on the NFL. The Ravens Steelers game got canceled, and then it got canceled the second time. Now they're playing on Tuesday. So what that does is it affects the following week's game because now those games got to get pushed back. And also there's I heard yesterday about the San Francisco 49ers. Their next 2 home games, which is next week and the following week, they won't be able to play because in California, in the area where they play, they're not allowing any sports in that area, so they're gonna have to come up with a different plan to play somewhere else.
Yeah, that's crazy. Do they play in a different state and still call it a home game?
Well, it's been done. I mean, you have some teams that are forced to play in other states and be considered a home team. It's not like there's concession to
Yeah, absolutely.
True.
So,
Well, you had in baseball where the team was playing in the road team's stadium and
Yeah.
still played as the home team.
Double headers.
Yeah.
Where
Because they didn't want to do any traveling and take a chance.
you had
So,
a home and
Yeah.
home double headers.
Right.
Yeah.
In the same ballpark.
Yeah, but these precautions and concerns are definitely causing a ripple effect throughout all leagues, but more so in the NFL, and it's really shaking up the playoff picture because sometimes teams just might not have all their guys, and then that one game could be the difference between a playoff spot or maybe a wild card game or.
Well, that's the reason why I didn't play fantasy football this year. Is because you never know which big name talent is just going to be unavailable on any given week.
Yeah. And it's one thing that football is already a crapshoot with injuries because
we'll
the
get into
amount
that
of
as well.
contact and everything. But add, testing positive and different protocols of having to sit out, at least 1 week of games. Depending on when you test positive, potentially 2 weeks.
It's pretty sad because the NFL just started to get the hang of the concussion protocol, and now we're starting a whole different type of protocol to work with.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, some of the injuries this year have been crazy. Like guys like Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott had that gruesome injury.
Oh yeah,
Even guys like Odell Beckham Jr. Nick Bosa as well.
My team lost Nick Bosa in the first week.
Yeah,
just a lot of serious injuries.
And are we going to continue to see these type of injuries because of like what my dad was saying of, games going into Tuesday and then possible short turnaround to another game?
Yeah. Not a lot of recovery.
Not a lot of recovery.
You got the lack of the preseason. Less practice time.
Exactly.
It's a lot of factors.
well, that and that plays a big role with the less practice time and everything else. What happens is you have to be prepared for that game, and it takes that's why they have that week for you to prepare, to watch film, to work on certain plays and everything else. And if you don't have that preparation time, it plays a big role. It plays a big difference.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And who are the favorites right now? Is it still the Steelers? And when you get to the playoffs, if someone tests positive, are they just going to push back that game, or a team going to have to play without their star player?
See, that's the difference. Yeah,
that's going to be the game changer.
Even
I think
it's even a tight race in the regular season because although Pittsburgh is undefeated, the Kansas City Chiefs have only lost one game. Yeah, and this year only the first seed gets a bye, for each conference. So the Steelers, although they're undefeated right now, they can't just relax. They can't let up. Every game is still just as important for them.
And the NFC is a little different because you want to be in that wild card game against the NFC East.
A tale of two divisions.
Absolutely.
Because you figure if you play against the NFC East, it's going to be a cakewalk.
That's basically a practice week for the following round.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah, I think it's going to get real interesting once you get into the playoffs, and if something happens, whether that's testing positive, and what does the NFL do? Do they just tell the team they got to suck it up?
Yeah, well, if it's a top player on a top team, how do you go about doing that?
But why does it matter what player?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But
NFL,
certain players
marketing
make
and everything.
a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, if Kansas City was to lose Mahomes, GG right there.
Yeah.
What do you do after that?
Yeah, that's
If you got a Kansas City Pittsburgh Steelers game for the AFC Championship game, and you lose Mahomes, and you lose what's his name? Who's the quarterback?
Roethlisberger.
Yeah. Right. You lose both them guys, then
what do you do?
Do you put the game back, or do you go along with the game and get whatever kind of game you're going to get out of it?
I'll tell you what I do. I run the ball.
Oh, absolutely.
and if I know, Jay, you said you're not doing fantasy, but if you're doing fantasy, you take both defenses.
Oh yeah.
You run the ball and take both defenses. That's what you do.
You pick up Kelsey. Kelsey is going to get a lot of targets.
Yeah.
Yep. All
right.
So it's gonna be interesting.
So now moving on to our next segment, which is called halftime. So during our halftime segment, this is where we're going to talk about something non-major sports. So the three major sports each have their own segment. This is when we discuss something that is non-three major sports.
Yes.
So Jay, kick us off on this one.
All right. So which non-major sport do you think is benefiting the most this year through COVID?
So I think it has to be individual sports as a whole, because obviously with social distancing and teams, like it's really hard to be part of that team atmosphere.
Okay.
So golf, tennis, both outdoors, which helps.
True.
Both individual sports. Obviously, tennis, you need an opponent, but you're
more
very
than 6
far
feet away.
Yeah, you're very far away.
Yeah.
So I think those two definitely benefit.
Yeah.
You also have sports like racing, NASCAR,
Yeah.
F1.
Yeah.
Bowling.
For sure.
Bowling, yes.
Yeah.
Any type of like isolated sport where you don't have to be around too many people at once, and
Yep.
you can socially distance and
So basically,
mask.
non-team sports.
yeah.
So Matthew, tell us about the marble madness that you into now.
So this was more towards the beginning of the pandemic. So for those who are watching, I'm just gonna throw this up here real quick. So this was our sports when all the major sports were down. We were, intently watching marble racing. This is,
I mean,
fascinating.
it's more
to say the
entertaining than you
least.
might think.
Yeah, when you really get into it and you start looking at your favorite color and cheering them on,
Yep.
it gets quite intense. And then you low key want to try it yourself, especially when we were all like really locked up and quarantine. You kind of were itching for anything exciting, sports related,
Some type of competition.
Exactly.
I'm quite sure at that time you could bet this at Vegas.
They're gonna add this to FanDuel soon.
I'll put 200 on the blue.
I always bet black.
No, but even with the individual sports, going back to that, like some of these sports you can play with mask, and Jay and I were talking before, and we were talking about playing poker.
Now, do you think wearing a mask kind of takes away from the poker face aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, I know when some of the casinos were opening up, they were putting plexiglass. So I guess if they had plexiglass, they didn't necessarily need to wear a mask. I don't know if it was allowed or not allowed. I haven't personally watched any competitive poker since in 2020.
Yeah, I haven't either.
But I don't know the mask versus plexiglass debate.
Well, I would think plexiglass would probably be the way to go.
Yeah, because of the poker
because
face.
of exactly.
Masks are definitely a competitive advantage in that sense.
Yeah.
So.
Mask and some shades, and you're good.
Yeah, well, I mean, they do allow shades.
Shades,
Yeah.
hoodies.
Yeah, so
But the shades you got to be careful with too, because of the reflection.
Yeah.
So you got to know how to use the shades.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if they allowed shades,
Yeah.
would they allow the mask?
I don't see why not. I mean,
I'm going all in.
as long as you don't put, as long as you ain't got no cards behind the mask.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm going all in. I'm going shades. I'm going mask. I'm going hoodie.
I'm just going to wear a Halloween mask at that point.
Jason.
Yeah. I'm going in. I'm not showing anything.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Well, I'm going to wear my full Among Us suit.
I'm showing up in Vegas like it's a snowstorm.
I say, wait, he stopped sweating. I don't know. He might have good cards.
It's gonna look like I'm going skiing.
Yeah, that's good. That would be so fun to see.
All right. So again, if you guys have any suggestions for any of the segments, but especially the halftime segment, leave a comment below, and we'll be sure to keep an eye out on that. So moving on to our next segment, which is baseball related, and it's called GoinYard.
Yep.
All right. Who wants to start us off?
Well, let's start off with free agency in Major League Baseball because, like the NBA, there was a fair share of big names on the market, but unlike the NBA, not a lot has happened yet. So, any predictions or any news, rumors, maybe?
Well, I think Jay put it nicely when we were chatting. It's the
tortoise and the hare.
Yeah, the tortoise and the hare. The comparison between MLB and NBA.
Well, the NBA was kind of like opening the doors on Black Friday. Everyone was just running and grabbing whatever free agent they could.
Yeah.
Baseball, being that they have more time before the season starts, it's going to be stretched out a lot more.
Yeah, and this is obviously everything got sped up a little in the NBA because of the short off season. Baseball is still operating under their normal off season timeline, at least for now. Yeah. And typically, not much happens until the winter meetings.
Yeah, which is around Christmas.
Right? Yeah, so I think this is typical for baseball. Whether it's good or not is a different story, but this is more typical for baseball, so I don't think it's nothing too crazy to worry about.
They're moving at a normal pace.
So. Exactly. But is that normal pace good?
Don't get me wrong, okay? You see me with my Pittsburgh stuff. I'm not a Pittsburgh fan, but I'm a big Clemente fan. But I'm a big diehard Met fan, and all of us on the board here are Met fans. And we have Uncle Steve. And Uncle Steve, I think, is going to bring us nice gifts this Christmas.
Cohen effect. Cohen effect.
Yeah.
So here's Uncle Steve.
There's a lot of big names on the market. The Real Mutos, the Bowers, the Springers of the world. And Steve Cohen has the money to spend. And him coming into office after the big pandemic hit this previous season is really big for Met fans. And he has money to spend, and he seems like he wants to spend it and make this Met team competitive.
Well, he wasn't affected like the other 29 owners as far as losing money during the pandemic. So it just makes it more likely that he's willing to spend more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the story just came out with the Phillies that they're estimating that they lost $2 billion in value. Yeah. So their owners are not going to even attempt to re-sign JT.
That's rough.
So, they spent all that money on Harper and, putting together a team around that, trying to be competitive. Oh. And now you traded Sixto Sanchez, which became a standout in his rookie season for the Marlins. Oh, yeah. And then you're losing who you traded for in JT.
But that only benefits the other teams because you have one less team that's competing to sign Real Muto. Yeah. So you may be able to get them for a cheaper price. And the other thing is you said Steve Cohen and wanting to spend more. And more sound rhymes with Lindor, and that's who I want the Mets to get. I want the Mets to make a trade for Lindor.
I mean, he's not a free agent, but it is
interesting. Yeah,
he has to be on the market because Cleveland's not going to re-sign him, so they're going to want to get some value in return, and I think that's going to be a competitive race of who goes after Lindor. But there's a lot of shortstop free agents next year.
Oh yes,
so
there's also a lot of. There's also some stars available at third base.
Yeah.
Yep. You have Arenado maybe on the move. You have Chris Bryant. Yep. Another guy. Either one of those guys could just carry a team.
So with all of us being Met fans, who's the one guy that you really, really want the Mets to sign? If you could only get one out of the free agents.
All right, Jay, start us up.
Free agents, I will go after Bauer. I think having him behind DeGrom is huge, having them two competing together. And I think his personality mixes well with New York. I think he can handle the pressure and thrive with it.
I agree. I go Trevor Bauer. I'm still that old school mentality to a certain extent of pitching.
Yep.
You got to have good pitching. He's
Pitching
coming off a great season. Him, DeGrom, and then hopefully you get Thor coming back off injury.
Well, we also have Stroman
Coming back. Yeah, that's a lockdown rotation, especially when you get to the playoffs. That's what you're gonna need.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with both of you guys and go with Trevor Bauer. I feel like the Mets, pretty much, like, for as long as I've known, they have been a team built around strong starting pitching, and I believe they can be very competitive that way. And especially now with Cano's money coming off the books following his suspension, I feel like that only helps us with Uncle Stevie in town. So I think Trevor Bauer would be a great addition alongside DeGrom, and his personality is definitely big enough for the big stage of New York.
Oh, yeah.
And I agree with everybody. I think Bauer would make the most sense. If you ever watched Major League Baseball and in the playoffs is made with strong pitching and timely hitting. You got to be strong up the middle. I think the Mets will be strong up the middle, even if they don't get some of the top free agents. If you get a good defensive center fielder and you get a good defensive catcher, the pitching will get you there. They'll get you there.
Well, hitting wasn't the Mets' problem anyway.
Absolutely not.
So, I mean, you have to add to the rotation. You have to shore up the bullpen. So, I just think Bauer just takes you that much further.
I just rather have Bauer over Springer and JT, personally.
Yeah.
I think those are the other two that you hear most of. I like Springer a lot. I just don't know how big of an upgrade defensively he will be throughout the lifetime of his contract.
Right.
And does he even stay in center?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know how strong defensively he would be over the lifetime of that contract. And then JT, like you said, the offense wasn't the Mets' problem. I think we need a strong defensive catcher.
Yep.
And personally, I'd rather go after my boy JBJ.
Yeah, I
like JBJ.
Yeah. I was gonna add on to that. Just I feel like out of those three big names that are like the three powerhouses of this free agency, I feel like the hardest one to replace is Bauer, because there are guys out there like JBJ and James McCann as a catcher, even a vet like Yadi Molina. Not to say that those guys are on the same level as a George Springer or a JT Realmuto, but those guys can definitely provide for you. And the Mets, the Mets need more like situational help than like big superstar talent. But you can never have enough pitching. So I think Trevor Bauer would be a great pickup in that sense.
And on that, I'm asking Uncle Stevie. Uncle Stevie, come on our show and give us your opinion. We would really love to have you here and find out what are your thoughts.
Well, he's given a lot of his thoughts online as well. Yeah. So you could just tweet at him.
Oh, yeah.
Because recently we saw this tweet. So I'll read it for you guys that are listening only. So someone tweeted, "Do we need a GM to be in place before we make any signings?" And what did Uncle Stevie respond?
He said no.
That's it. That was the whole tweet. Just no. So I guess Uncle Stevie is ready to go. He has people in place. Obviously, Sandy Alderson is there. He's a great baseball mind in the time being until we get a GM. But it seems like they're on the hunt for their GM to find someone, but that's not going to hold them back.
It's also nice to see that Sandy Alderson could work with a budget now. It was restrictions before, and I think he did a good of a job with the restrictions, but now that there's no restrictions, let's see what he can do.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. He did a great job, I think, on the drafting side of things while he was in charge, but he was handicapped sometimes in free agency and on the trade market. Hopefully that's not the same this time.
Well, if you look at the current roster, most of them were drafted. Most of the core were added by Sandy Alderson. So they're already reaping benefits of having him in charge. So
and especially in New York, the biggest market in the country, in the world, even.
Yep.
You want to have some big names there to represent your city. So it'll be very interesting to see how this free agency goes.
we're a big market now, guys.
Yes.
Finally. It's about time.
Let's go Mets.
All right. Anything else on baseball before we move on?
Well, you want to touch on the Cano suspension?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we can go a little bit more into that.
Yeah, so Robinson Cano tested positive for
Again.
Second time.
his second time testing positive for steroids or
PEDs.
PEDs.
Yeah.
So now he's suspended for a full season. His money comes off the books, so gives Uncle Stevie $24 million back in his pocket.
But we have to bear in mind that his money goes back on the books for the next 2 seasons.
Is it
24?
2?
Yes.
Yes.
2.
Oh, so he has
Yes.
2 more after
2
this?
years, $48 million remaining.
Okay.
So
yeah, it's a short-term relief, but also with everything that happened in 2020 and a lot of MLB teams looking to cut payroll, some of these players, I think, are going to sign 1-year deals.
absolutely.
Because
I think so,
they're
too.
hoping that
Yes.
2021 is a bounce back for baseball.
Right.
And then they can get a more lucrative contract going into offseason again next year.
Right.
I think that's also played a big part into Stroman signing his
that's very true.
qualifying offer
Very
because that money's guaranteed and right in front of him. If he goes into the free agency market and no one's spending money.
Well, that's the thing. You don't know who has money to spend, who's going to try and...
He's taking that 1-year gamble on himself.
Yeah. It's a good gamble. He's
Absolutely.
getting almost, $19 million almost?
I forget exactly how much, but yeah, it was something like that.
Uh-huh.
But
it's a nice gamble. I'd take that gamble. You could sign me for that.
but yeah, I think that even with that 1 year of $24 million, that might not play a major role into getting some of the bigger name guys that we were talking about, but that can, get a bullpen, arm and a bat off the bench.
Well, if you look at it, that $24 million is paying for Stroman this year.
Oh yeah,
Paying him, and we have some money left over. So
yep.
It's a blessing in disguise. You hate to see someone do PEDs, get caught PEDs, and you just hate to see it on your team. But I mean, we have to look at the positive side.
I mean, pun intended.
Yeah.
I mean, but also look at the difference in seasons.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like he really struggled and then had a really good bounce back year.
And
And you don't tend to see that in the mid to late 30s.
Yes.
and carrying on Cano's age, like him not playing this year just opens up another spot for other guys to prove themselves. As of right now, the Mets still have Andres Jimenez and Ahmed Rosario still on their roster. So one of those guys could easily slide in and play second base every day.
Well, you also have McNeil.
Yeah. McNeil can move to second base.
Just
play J.D. Davis a lot more at third.
Just a lot more
His natural
creativity
position.
for Luis Rojas.
Yeah.
Or does that open up the trade for Lindor?
Good.
Yeah.
You could get rid of a couple of salaries, and wind up with Lindor, and because I just think it's so important to be strong up the middle. In baseball, year after year after year, the teams that are always at the at the end in the World Series are the teams that are strong up the middle. If you have a strong shortstop, strong second baseman, center field, and a catcher, with good pitching, you're gonna be in the playoffs.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think it's all really good options, and for the first time in a long time, you're excited to be a Mets fan during free agency.
Yeah, it's a win-win, I think.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't been excited since Minaya was spending money left and right. Now, hopefully we'll spend money, but, Alderson will do it the smart way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, now moving on to our last segment, which is called garbage time. Now, during garbage time, we will each have one question, which everyone else has to answer and give their reason why. All right. Who wants to start off?
I'll start it off.
All right.
So my question, we all in here Chicago Bulls fans.
Yes, sir.
And my question is, will the Chicago Bulls make the playoffs this year?
Well, I'll start it off.
All right.
That's a big NO from me. I don't think they have the talent to do it. I don't think that they have the time to gel well. You know, you have a young team, you have a new coach, you have a new GM, you have everything just fresh, brand new, and not a lot of time to work to gel it together.
I agree. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I really like the direction they're going. This is not me being, mad with the team.
Yeah.
This is just me being realistic. I think Kobe White had a great start last year. Well, really picked it up halfway through the season. Zach LaVine's been great. Otto Porter, if he stays healthy, I think can play a role. People, forget about him. He's only 27, 28 years old. I think he can be a real good 3-and-D guy. Marketing and Wendell Carter, I think they both need to bounce back and, play better as bigs. Hopefully this new system that Billy Donovan brings in. But then after that, the bench. I think that's where they're really going to struggle. You got some decent guys on the bench, but I don't see the bench being that strong to be a playoff team. I think the starters, even with the starters, I think there's still some room for improvement. There's still guys that, either need to have bounce back years or continue to develop their young core going in the right direction. I just don't know if it's enough to be
I don't see
playoff
the depth
team.
there.
Yeah.
A starter goes down, I don't see anyone competitively.
Yeah,
Not your boy Patrick Williams?
In a couple years, he'll be good. But.
I feel like as of right now, barring injury or anything like that, I'd probably say no as well. I feel like this is going to be a good developmental year for the Bulls because they do have a lot of young talent, and I feel like Billy Donovan will be a very good mentor for them and help a lot of those guys develop. But I also feel like a lot of the teams in the Eastern Conference got better. Like, if you think of teams like Atlanta or, teams that were already in the playoffs, say like the Orlando Magic or, even the Brooklyn Nets got a lot better because they're getting guys back from injury.
Yes.
So a lot of teams in the East are getting better, and it's just going to make it even more competitive. And I know it has been referred to as the Leastern Conference before, but the East is getting up there slowly but surely. And I feel like the Bulls are just a little bit too young and inexperienced. But, after the season, they'll get some money off the books, and, hopefully they'll be able to make some moves to make a push in the next couple of years with some good drafts coming up.
Well, my perspective on the whole thing is I believe if they stay healthy, they have an outside chance. I think a big role this year is going to be, because the teams are not in a bubble, is staying healthy. You get some of these teams in the East that get one of their star players out, and that'll be the opportunity for some of these other teams to make up and catch up to them and play that role. I think Billy Donovan is going to provide them with the coaching that they've been lacking. I think you're going to see an improvement, a big improvement in marketing, in Wendell Carter. I just think that it's so important for them to stay healthy. And let's see, outside chance.
All right.
Yeah.
Tim, what's your garbage time question?
My garbage time question is, do you guys think that Giannis will sign a massive contract extension with Milwaukee this in the next month or so before his deadline?
Who wants to start off that one?
I'll start off again.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to sign it. I just think whatever extra money he would get in this supermax with Milwaukee could easily be replaced by endorsements or whatnot off the court in a major market. And I just think he's going to be frustrated with Milwaukee not putting the pieces around him that he needs to make that jump into a championship caliber. And I just think he's going to leave for greener pastures. I see Miami being a big player in that.
I mean, I think there's definitely some options. I don't think it's too much on Milwaukee's fault. I think they've done everything they could. I don't know what happened with the whole trade falling apart with
Bogdanovich.
Bogdanovich. But I think they've been number one in the East. They've made some smart moves. They have a really good defensive and deep team. They employ his brother.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Thanasis.
But so do the Lakers. Lakers got his other brother.
Yeah, but he's on a 2-way contract. I don't know what Thanasis is on, but anyway, so he's a real wholesome guy.
Yeah,
like
sure.
he grew up not in this country. You know, he's
humble,
very raw, very humble. You know, when he was one of the seasons that he was an all-star, he walked to the bank after practice, and then it was snowing and he only had slides on.
Wow.
So a fan actually picked him up.
Wow.
Because they saw a 6'8" dude, or however tall he is, walking from the bank in slides back towards the arena.
Yeah.
Like, that's the type of guy he is. So I say yes, he does sign the deal.
Go ahead, Dad.
Well, I look at it as, I know that he said that he wants to stay in Milwaukee, and he, to me, seems like the type of guy that when he says something, he means it, you know, and I think that Milwaukee's going to continue over the years to try to build a team around him. Him being in the East, I think it helps him because the East is a little easier to win than the West is. So I think if they continue to build around the team that they have now, I think it's gonna help him stay there. But I just think he's the type of guy that when he says something, he means it. And I also think he's gonna wind up staying in Milwaukee.
Okay, well, I'm a bit torn on this question, but I think I am leaning towards the notion that he will end up re-signing with Milwaukee. I just feel like Giannis did not have the smoothest life when he was a child.
Nope.
And you know, he's worked for everything that he's gotten, and he worked harder than everyone else to prove himself. And you know, Milwaukee took a chance on him in the 2013 draft, and you know, he's proven to exceed expectations, you know, that anyone had for him. So I think he would definitely be more inclined to be loyal to a franchise that was willing to, you know, help him develop and grow as a player and as a person. But in the same, I also feel that it's very possible that he does leave. You know, the obviously the Bogdanovich trade that fell through was very unfortunate.
Good friend.
But they also did go all in this year, regardless of the Bogdanovich trade. They mortgaged a lot of their future to get Drew Holiday, and they're hoping to be super competitive this year. And I feel like, in part, Giannis will keep getting better, and that will make them more competitive. But also, there might have to be a coaching change, because as good of a regular season coach as Mike Budenholzer is, he just doesn't make any adjustments come playoff time. And you know, there will be playoff games where Giannis is only playing like 30 minutes a game, which is what he averaged in the regular season, and then they end up losing. So that might be the real issue, more so than the supporting cast around Giannis, because they really do have a great, you know, a defensive team and a great team to build around Giannis.
Well, they definitely got better.
Yeah.
They got better this offseason.
So I feel like if he does leave, though, I feel like some premier spots for him would be Miami, like JR had mentioned.
Yep.
Also, Toronto could be a possibility.
Golden State.
Yeah.
Oh
but
God.
my sleeper pick would be the Dallas Mavericks.
Ah, that's
Ooh,
true.
him and Luka.
Yeah.
That would be
Him and Luka?
some foreign flair in Dallas.
Oh, my Lord.
that would be
That
some.
would be scary.
That'd be.
You don't even forget about KP at that point.
That'd be the foreign legions. I mean,
Especially if KP stays,
Yeah.
the 3.
Oh,
yeah.
My goodness. It'll be the EuroLeague All-Stars versus. All right. So my garbage time question is, pitch me your best trade package for the Mets to get Lindor.
All right. Well, first off, we got to trade out of strengths. We have a logjam corner outfielders, so I would try to include someone in that range.
Okay.
Hopefully,
like who though?
Well, I'd love to get rid of Nemo in one of those in a trade this offseason. So I would throw him in there. You probably will have to give up one of the 2 young shortstops we have in Rosario or Jimenez.
Yeah.
That instant replacement for
Absolutely. A Major League ready instant replacement.
Yep.
You got to give up some top prospects. I'd like to hold on to the catcher. But as far as other players, you have Mauricio, the shortstop, who, if you have Lindor and you lock him into place, you don't need the prospect coming up, the blue chip prospect at that position.
Yep.
So, you have to add that. Then you have to throw in maybe some pitching prospects. Off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure who, but
what level? What level? Like you give a top 10 prospect.
Oh, absolutely.
In the Mets farm, you give top 20.
I think
pitching prospect.
I think if you have a window to sign an extension with him before a trade is actually agreed to, I think you can be happy giving up more for him if you're locking him into place.
Okay.
I tend to believe that I wouldn't go with big prospects until I find out who's in the market trying to get Lindor. Because if we're the only ones in there,
you don't want to bid against yourself.
Yeah, we don't want to bid against ourselves. But my package would be Rosario, J.D. Davis, and then I would it's going to take more than 2.
Oh yeah.
Then I would go with Jimenez because we could replace Jimenez. And we won't need to replace Jimenez right away.
So, but you would want to get rid of Jimenez and
Rosario?
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Because if we got Lindor, we also got Mauricio in the minors. And Mauricio, when he comes up, he could play third base. He's a big guy.
Yeah, he may not.
So he could play third base. We can afford to give both shortstops that we have now because we're upgrading.
Yeah, we have some, and we also have some.
Right, and then we could always move our infield around in order to accommodate for the loss. But my whole thing is if we could give up Rosario, Jimenez, J.D. Davis, and maybe a top 20 prospect, I think we can get that trade done.
Well, it depends on what the market's looking like for Lindor too.
I agree with both of you guys to an extent. I feel like one of Jimenez or Rosario would definitely be the first piece in a trade like that. As a Met fan, I would definitely be more inclined to keep Jimenez because of his promise swinging the bat, and he is younger, and his defensive versatility.
His defense,
yeah. That's really his best attribute to this point. I also think J.D. Davis would have to go in a trade like this because it's a good value piece to get back.
Plus, he's not good defensively.
Well, even at his natural position, he's not.
And I also think an outfielder would have to go because Cleveland does have a pretty big hole in the outfield. Like all throughout their outfield, it isn't too great. I feel like Brandon Nimmo would be the odd man out just because you don't want to give up a Conforto or a Dominic Smith. So I feel like Nimmo would be the odd man out, and then just high-level prospects. But, of course, depending on his market. And I feel like another big factor is when this trade would happen, because depending on where free agents go and, possibly if the Mets have any free agents that they sign, maybe they have holes covered up. so they can be more willing to get rid of some guys in a trade package for Lindor.
The Nimmo situation, the only reason why I would hold off on that is Nimmo is not the greatest defensive outfielder, but he gets on base. He gets on base.
Sandy loves that.
Yeah. The other thing is this:
Sandy doesn't care if you strike out.
Yeah. The other thing is this: it depends on who we sign to play center field.
Yeah.
That plays a major role, and because the DH rule is still going to be into effect, okay, so we don't have to worry about putting
Dom Smith
in left field. You know, he'll play occasionally out there and occasionally at first base. But we need a guy like Nimmo who can get on base for the guys hitting behind him. So
That's true.
Yeah, I think I think you have to start with JD Davis and either Rosario or Jimenez.
Yeah.
That's the baseline. And to me, I know Tim was saying he prefers one or the other. I don't care. Cleveland, who do you want?
If it's for a talent like Lindor, the best shortstop in baseball,
Now,
you can't get too picky.
With Stroman taking the qualifying offer,
Yep.
and if we go hard after Bauer,
Yeah.
would you be more inclined to include David Peterson into?
no.
Because what happens if after the year with Stroman?
Well, yeah, I
then
mean
you
that's
just
the
replace him on
chance.
the market.
No, for
That's
me,
the chance you
because
gotta
a lefty quality starter, no.
True.
He showed a lot of promise this year.
Yes.
I tried to only limit JD Davis in either Jimenez or Rosario as my major league talent.
Yeah.
That's my baseline for major league talent. And then from there, I go with
Well,
two prospects.
Well, the thing is, you have to kind of look at the Mookie Betts trade.
Yes, exactly.
And use that as almost a guideline.
Yeah.
Where, Lindor may not be as good as Mookie Betts, but at the position he plays, it's more of a premium.
Yeah.
And it's a very similar situation. Mookie Betts was 1 year left on his deal and was going to get a massive contract extension.
Yeah.
Which he did.
Yeah, and what did they give up? They gave up two major league ready and one top prospect, and I think one medium
But the
prospect.
thing is, the major league ready that they gave up is better than the players that we've just mentioned. JD Davis, who is a good hitter, but he has a lot of question marks as far as the other side of the field.
Yeah,
and
but
that's
in the American
that's where-
League, I'm sorry, but in the American League, he could DH. You want his bat in the lineup. His bat is why, is gonna make him. It's gonna bring him the money.
Yeah.
Okay, but the other thing is the Mets have, over the years, they have done away with a lot of their minor leaguers, and their minor leagues aren't as strong as some of the other teams.
Well,
but in order to get a talent like Lindor, you have to give. I mean, I wouldn't even mind giving up a guy like Beatty. The draft choice, the third baseman that they drafted, young kid. Would you regret it later on? Who knows? But you don't know. If this kid is going to turn out to be a all-star Hall of Fame type player, or he's going to be a player, one of these role players where, pinch hitter, defensive player, something like that. So I'd rather go with the talent that now, like a Lindor, than someone like, a Beatty, and we know already what Rosario and what Jimenez and JD Davis can do. So I mean, I would definitely make the trade.
I would too.
Yeah, I think you have to go all in for Lindor. I know there are other options in the free agent market next year,
but you can't count on those players actually hitting the market.
Yeah,
because some of them could just sign extensions or get traded and sign an extension.
Exactly. That's why I think you leverage what you have now and go after that
and
marquee talent.
Especially with the Mets having more money to spend than
most other
MLB teams.
It's very true.
It definitely works in their favor in that sense.
All right, Jay, your garbage time question.
My question is, will the Lakers repeat? Will they win a second championship?
This one is interesting.
Go ahead, Pops.
I mean, with the moves that they made, it's a very good chance. But, I mean, does Father Time ever catch up to LeBron? I mean, this guy he's a freak of nature.
It's ridiculous.
Him and Anthony Davis together, it's a hard team to beat.
Well, they gelled so quickly.
And they only need but a little bit of talent around them. They just need guys to make shots. That's all they need.
Yeah, that's why they got rid of Danny Green.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If they could get guys to make shots, then they're going to be fine. Because LeBron is the type of player that, he likes to get everybody involved, and when he needs to take over, he'll take over. But I as far as I'm concerned right now, I don't think there's another team out there that could beat them.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. I think what the Lakers did this offseason is just it made them better. Somehow, some way, they improved.
Yeah, it's tough when the best team in the league gets better, especially on the bench. Their bench is really long. They just...
I think, the moves that they made, the leadership that they have in LeBron, and the fact that they have AD. Well, they will have AD. Yeah. He's not officially re-signed, but they will have AD. That gives LeBron the break they need. I think losing Rondo is actually bigger than what people think.
It's huge.
Because he ran the offense.
Playoff Rondo was something else, too.
Yeah, he ran the offense when LeBron wasn't on the court.
He was even making shots. That was really good.
But I think, they have some playmakers, and although AD isn't a guard, but you can still play through him when LeBron's not on the court.
Adding Schroeder's big.
Adding Schroeder, I think even Caruso.
Caruso, yeah.
Caruso,
on his belt.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's a star defensively, on the defensive end more so, but I think he learned a lot from playing alongside Rondo, where he can help run the offense when LeBron's not in the game.
Right.
Yeah. There's just the overall talent levels is crazy. So I'm going yes.
Yeah. It's very possible. The repeat is very possible because for me, at least from my perspective, I feel like a lot of teams got better this offseason, but I feel like it was more so teams that were maybe lottery teams or not as competitive. I feel like several teams will be competitive this year, like just in general, but there's a different level when it comes to, playoff basketball, and no one knows that better than LeBron James.
Oh, yeah. It's been in the playoffs just about every year.
Yeah. And, LeBron brought Anthony Davis to a whole new level, and AD, like Matt was saying, AD gives LeBron the break that he needs, and, picking up guys who could run the show like Dennis Schroeder, and, only giving up like a Danny Green who was eventually replaced with a Wesley Matthews. They were just filling in all the holes that they had, and they're really becoming a complete team. Their defense on the interior scares me a little bit when AD's not on the court. Marcus Gasol has been known to be a good defender, but he is getting up there in age.
He's 2 steps slower.
Yeah. And guys like Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell aren't great interior defenders. So that would probably be my only issue with this team if I had to be nitpicky. But
now that you brought that up, losing JaVale McGee is a low key big move. He
and Dwight Howard
and
maybe he may be up there in the Shaqtin' a Fool, but he was pretty good defensively.
Absolutely,
he did a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but as long as AD's on the court. They shouldn't have any issues in that sense.
LeBron has played with a lot of really good players, but I don't think he's played with this level of talent in their prime the way AD is.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think that's huge. He's passing the baton.
So does AD sign a 1-year contract or a long-term contract?
Well, I think he's going to sign a contract that mirrors what's left on LeBron's contract.
Yeah.
And then be able to move from there. Unless he signs a 1-year deal so that they can try and add a third superstar. next offseason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which I don't
That'll be
know how that
interesting,
works under the
but-
cap.
Who, Bronny?
Not quite yet.
He's a couple years away.
Yeah.
Even though he's almost LeBron's height.
Did you
now.
see?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that was crazy.
it'll be very interesting to see. I think the Lakers definitely have a good shot of coming out the West, and it's only time will tell. But their team definitely got better, and they're the reigning champions. So
Yep.
it's looking good for the Lakers right now.
The odds are on their favor.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening or watching our first episode. Again, we're going to be trying to do this bi-weekly, so stay tuned for the next episode. As always, we appreciate you listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.
All right.
Peace.
See you guys.